Thank you for joining us for today's TSFA virtual learning demonstration. My name is Amanda and I'm the Education Assistant at TSFA. We are pleased to offer these virtual learning demonstrations made possible by the Texas Floral Education Underwriters. TSFA's virtual learning will be archived and made available at tsfa.org under the TSFA On Demand tab. Today, our guest speaker, Charlie Groppetti AIFD, will be presenting Fall in the Garden. Charlie is a floral designer and one of founding owners at the Park Hill Collection based in Little Rock, Arkansas. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the demonstration, please type them into the Zoom control panel. Now, without further ado, please welcome Charlie. Welcome back.
We had so much fun the last time, I thought I'd come back and do it again. It's, to be honest, it's been a pretty hectic week. So it's kind of nice to have this little time to be creative and get together with y'all before we head on home. So I really appreciate you tuning in today. We're going to talk a little bit about fall and how we combine produce from the grocery store or produce wholesaler along with botanical products that are available. But I really want to thank Texas State Florist Association for the opportunity and for everything they do with education. It is unparalleled in the industry of what Texas State does. And to do that, we need sponsors. So I have three wonderful sponsors today. I have Mayesh, I have Zoom Roses, and I also have Alexandra Farms Garden Roses. So one thing all those companies do, they have incredible product, they're incredibly generous with their support, but they all have invested in technology. Zoom Roses, for instance, does an incredible job with social media and promotions, and their garden rose contest is phenomenal. And being able to look at the resources of roses and that they grow online. Zoom Roses was one of the first companies to really get down the logistics of shipping flowers years ago. And I sort of reconnected with Hein. Actually, I was a customer when I lived in California. He helped us out with several projects. So they were the first ones to figure out the supply chain and logistics of shipping flowers. I knew them as Zoom Roses, but Zoom carries lots of other products beyond roses. And then Mayesh has really been on the forefront of social media with their design stars. They have tea time and talks on social media. They sent me this, is mayesh.com. They're sort of rebuilt their website to enhance the shopping experience for you. So we all want everything to be pretty, but there's a lot of technology that goes on behind the scenes that these companies are on the forefront, and that's why they're successful. I find inspiration for fall from the garden. And so I just took a walk around, and fall, you know, first thing that comes to mind is yellow, orange pumpkins and things like that. But fall is really more subtle in its colors because it's a transitional time from summer to winter. So plants, as the weather chills, there's more carotenoids and different things that are triggered botanically in the plant. So these colors happen because of that. Shorter days and cooler temperatures. So I just took a walk to kind of put together some color palettes that we'll kind of cover today with our flowers. This is one really transitioning from green oak, and then green to orange, and even hydrangea leaves, they're starting to transition. So as a florist, I know you carry a lot of green, and we'll discuss how we can transition that green base into something more fall without having to give up any kind of greenery. And then yellow. Yeah, behind me you see these yellow sunflowers, but yellow is more complicated and can be more layered than just yellow. So when we mix yellow with tonal browns, ginkgo leaves, this is actually a magnolia leaf that's changing with the season. So yellow and browns and really wonderful textures. This is yellow greens and green golds, which are really beautiful. And that's one that's great for now, especially as we're transitioning into, we're sort of in between seasons really, and we're not quite into the full-blown fall. This one is more plums and purples, merlot colors, kind of anchored by that warm sycamore brown leaf. I think that could be a really dramatic palette. And then the red maples and the burning bush, almost to hot pink burgundies and orangey pinks. So those are our color inspiration, and I put a few things together to talk about that. But getting back to technology, I created this using the bromeliads. These are actually dried foliage, and some of the, although we think of our suppliers as fresh suppliers or plant suppliers, a lot of the fresh growers are incorporating, especially this time of year, dry goods or preserved into their offerings. So make sure and check that out. So this is a bromeliad, and to me, it really looked like flame tips. And I thought, well, it's a beautiful line, and one of the favorite things I love to do is have a campfire in the fall. So I went out and found some old broken kindling and oak branches. I used some potatoes here. Let me adjust this a little bit. Potatoes or rocks, or some embers or coals, this beautiful orangey red rose, and just sort of created these flames surrounding the logs. Now, the reason I did this is because the idea was, since all these our sponsors are putting so much time into technology, I started thinking, how can we enhance the customer experience at home by combining technology with flowers? So I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can, everyone has their phones all the time, constantly with them. How can we incorporate the phone experience with the floral experience? So here's a virtual campfire, and you could include a little link with this floral design, and then you tell them to set their phone here, and the campfire is crackling, and it has a little bit of movement. So it's sort of just something that came out of desperation, honestly, is how do we combine the customer experience with technology? So let's say you're doing a tropical arrangement where an iPad could sit into it for the Jungle Book to be watched, or a really icy winter scene for some child to watch Frozen again for the millionth time. But to create an atmosphere where we can include technology into that. That's just a crazy idea I had. I wanted to share with you and see how you could incorporate that into your business. Maybe someone sends you a recorded Christmas greeting, and this fire becomes a Christmas arrangement with the logs, and the recorded link is a Christmas greeting from your customer to the recipient sitting by their fireplace. So just something for you to think about over the weekend when you're relaxing. How can we increase the visual experience of flowers with technology? It's possible. Can you hear the fire cracking? Oh, it's so nice. I wish I had some marshmallows and some chocolate to make s'mores. So let me shut my fire off. I hope someone takes that idea and runs with it, because I think it could be really interesting. All right. So let's start with this palette. I've been drawn to yellow, and one of my favorite trees is my sycamore tree. And I wanted to do something more parallel systems, a little more designery, I guess. And the one thing that I've noticed is chrysanthemums have gotten so pretty. I mean, this color is gorgeous. It's just this soft butterscotch color. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's in a designer flat bowl, and I used Aurelia, Fatsia Aurelia leaves, which really is quick coverage, but they're green. So the idea is to take this green and transition it into sort of fall tones. The elongated shape of the pumpkins is sort of interesting, and so it works well with doing parallel systems. Lily grass kind of gives it some movement. throughout. And when you're working with lily grass, you have to take the eye somewhere. You're creating directional lines. So the eye has to sort of travel, almost like you have little people on a roller coaster. They have to go around, and it has to take you somewhere. These lines are supposed to create interest, but they're directional lines. They have to make sense and go somewhere. They're not just randomly exploding out of the design. So when you do something dynamic, linear like this, make sure that your eye can travel around the design and through the design. There's a lot of preserved product available, as I mentioned earlier. This is oak leaves, these little white pods. These are sort of semi-dried grasses and broom corn. So they just sort of last long. And with fall, those textures really work to your advantage. It doesn't have to be perfectly fresh. As long as it's clean and tailored, the dry actually works well for fall.
Charlie, can we see the bottom of that arrangement a little bit better?
Yes. Let's see. I go back. So there's pave roses. Yeah. There's pave roses and mums, really just a real flat plane to it where these parallel systems could kind of come out. And then the branch is just actually a tulip magnolia, just a bare branch from the yard, just to kind of give it a little more value and add a line to it. The yellow roses are really beautiful and bright, almost an egg yolk yellow. And I mean, they're beautiful and firm. And they'll last a long time close to the foam here and close to the water source on such a short stem. But it's taking that yellow and adding layers to it. And you can easily come in with things like this. And if you can tuck these in there if you wanted to, just to give it a little bit more texture. But really, it's just taking that green base and transition it into fall. All right. And continue on with yellow.
Charlie, how do you stand the long fruit, or how do you keep it standing?
Good question. Magic. You can use green cowie picks. I have kebabs left over from summertime. They're just bamboo sticks. I always put 2 or 3 just because 1 is never enough. And they're firmly in there. The thing about wood, pick, or bamboo, they're going to swell up with the water and become really tight. And then just sort of balancing them in. And this one, I wanted the stem to be more parallel and perpendicular, not the pumpkin. So the pumpkin's sort of leany, but the stem keeps your line sort of straight. But that's a great question. I use a lot of bamboo picks on things like that. So this one, I wanted to take this yellow sort of palette and tarnish it and golden brown it a bit. This is really just nested in here. There's no, I didn't want to cut the pumpkin up because I wanted to last longer. So I just sort of created this pumpkin nest. And, you know, when sunflowers are missing petals, you can easily pluck them off and you give that beautiful dark brown, almost aubergine center. And the center is equally as important as the yellow rays. And it gives a lot of weight. One of the interesting materials here is, I know this as Viburnum tinus or spring bouquet. Let me see if I can get it. There we go. Or Larustinus. It is an incredible foliage, and it has these wonderful little berries. These are a little more raisin colored. Typically, there could be a navy blue. And this product will last a long time. It has a very leathery green leaf that is beautiful. So again, we're not shying away from green greens, because it's fall. We're just transitioning into that. And even the outer sepals of this sunflower help do that. Beautiful mums, and really this is quite ordinary. It's just a round garland around this big pumpkin. So there's sedum in here, there's preserved foliage, preserved oak, which was kind of handy to have. I really like mixing it in there. And then there's grevillea, which I've never really used it too much, but the texture is really wonderful. And the color is a really subtle shade of green to brown. One thing to be careful is, because it has these sort of jagged textural leaves, it's enough texture. You can over texturize your design if you start to add things to it. And the funny thing is, I tried to incorporate roses into this particular design. It didn't work. There was already too much going on. And I was very content with just featuring mums, because the mums really are the queen of the season, basically. So I wanted to give this a little more something. So just an old honeysuckle vine, and it could either go around, or we can do this, just sort of create a loop over and tuck that in. I love these old vines, and they're just so suitable for fall. I'm sure the delivery people love these. Back in the days when Mylar balloons are popular, this would be a nightmare. So we're going to tuck that in there and secure it in place. And so you can kind of see that's changed it and made it a lot more visually interesting. We could go in here and tidy this up a bit. And then actually, same thing with this color inspiration. These magnolia leaves will last so long that we can actually come in and tuck a few of these in. And they're a beautiful color combination with that butterscotch looking chrysanthemum. So you have this almost preserved looking magnolia with a mum. You know your customer's going to get a lot of satisfaction out of that, because it's going to last a long time. They'll be putting up their Christmas decorations, and they'll still have their fall arrangement. One other little item in here is sedum. It's kind of a succulent. It lasts a long time. And a lot of times there's side branches. You can really economize by taking those side branches off and using them as to tuck into the base. And they make a beautiful combination with this laurustinus. Dark to light. And it really starts to take you to that butterscotch color. I like to stair-step colors and blend them together. So many times in fall arrangements, I see orange and I see yellow. And it's like, ha, very loud. I like to do the colors to make them coordinated, kind of blend together. You get a more cohesive blended look. Instead of seeing color spots, you'll see more of a blended overall arrangement. All right. Slide this over here. Thank you, sir. This one, I got a lot of flax, I got a lot of flax leaves in my boxes. And one thing that a lot of the sponsors are featuring, which I think is great, are mixed boxes of foliage and product. Whereas You don't have to buy 24 bunches of one foliage. They offer these variety packs. So next time you're looking at the sponsors' websites, look for those variety packs. And you may get 2 of this and 2 of that and 4 of that. So in one box, you have a beautiful variety of textures and colors in just foliage. That's something new to me. I had never been aware that on a smaller scale, it's a little more manageable to have these mixed boxes. So this is a stack of 2 blocks. We're actually 3. Let me show you. It's a designer bowl, flat, and let me show you. And really the simple idea is it may come like this. Make sure and cut it flat. And then you're just going to start wedging these here. And actually, if you want to secure them with a green pin, you could. And I'll show you here where there's a green pin underneath there. I just took the end of it and folded it and tucked it in. And it made this nice little belt buckle to cover the mechanics. You can also do something where, as an embellishment to this, you just tuck in a nice little leaf to bring some of that yellow there and give it sort of a medallion kind of look. So this is stacked here. We did the flax around. The one thing I did do on the corners to keep the little square, this is the front of the flax. When I got to the corners, I reversed it because it folds and makes a much squarer edge. If I did it the same way as the other leaves, it's a little more rounded. It just naturally sort of goes. The one thing about flax is you can split it very easily. So actually this here is only half. And so you can use it and do specialty things with it. It will hold up beautifully. You can make little bows, loops. It's a great material. And it can also be very dynamic in a linear arrangement like this. So this, create the little box, and then just start inserting your flowers up here to make a mass that sort of spills out the top. This one made sense because of the yellow variegation in the flax to bring some of this gold and yellow. And this is a few sunflowers, the grevillea, broomcorn, and these are cremones, which are button mums that have been pinched for a single blossom. So these big button mums, they're pretty. They're almost like a teddy bear sunflower. And we know that they're going to last a long time. So this is just sort of more of a, artsy sort of fall in a sense, where it's a little more architectural, a little more of a rigid design. It still has the bountifulness of a fall, but it's really sort of a stylized corn stalk, basically, or a sheath of wheat, but just a little more contemporary in its styling. And
Charlie,
yes.
How many bunches of flax did you use in that?
It was 2 bunches of flax, and it came, actually I can show you, I'll show you 2 bunches. In one of my mixed foliage boxes, this is 2 bunches. Now, another thing you could do, you can actually weave this into placemats and different things like that. I mean, you could just do that and make a mat for your design. I even thought it would be interesting if you did sort of do a basket weave where you pop these in and then sort of wove a basket of foliage like this. See if I can show you that real quick to give you the idea. It's just, it's a very interesting product. So you could do that all the way down. And if you do work in clear glass, certainly you could take a glass cylinder and line these around or spin it around for an interesting spiral line. It's just a great product. You don't really see often enough. This is more of a green to burgundy, where the other one was a variegated yellow and green. So this is 2 bunches. It's a lot. And if we have time, I can demonstrate that a little further. All right. Yeah. Let's do a little housekeeping. Thank you. So, these are roses from Alexandra Farms. I believe it is Princess Akiko, if my Japanese is on. I love pears for as a fruit. Any kind of pear, I just think is a really elegant fruit to use in floral design. Make sure that you get them while they're absolutely fresh, so they'll stay firm a lot longer. You don't want to put overly ripe pears into something unless it's just a party for that night. And actually, the fragrance of a fresh pear could be a nice addition. That's just a judgment call you're going to have to make. So this is a real primitive wood bowl, and I just stuck a inexpensive liner inside, and I just took grass or hay and filled in around it. I just wanted that little bit of a crude texture for fall. I mean, look at that rose in the middle. It's just incredible. These roses, they start off kind of pink, and then as they roll out open, they get this beautiful, fleshy, like a tequila sunrise, if you remember the 80s and the 90s. Just a beautiful, beautiful cosmetic color. And then the sedum made sense to fill in. Now, one thing that you could add to this is a metallic. And these came in one of my boxes. It is a beautiful coppery leaf that's already been painted. You can paint your own, but these just happen to come conveniently like this already. And so I plucked them off the branch. And the one thing I liked is that they're pliable. So just thought that this beautiful reflective color would look beautiful with this copper metallic. And we all have customers that love metallics. I had Joyce Souza, who loved gold, lots of gold and silver. Almost everything had to be very metallic. You remember these customers. Esther Mercer loved gold. Yvette Haywood loved white and gold. And so I tend to use a lot of just unpainted materials, but those customers, that's 15 or 20 years ago, I still remember their names because I know what they liked. It's so ingrained, it's almost comical. These do not necessarily have to be tucked into the water source. They should be secure, but that can be done by wedging as well. Or tucking into the fruit, and the weight of the fruit keeps it in place. And then I love the combination of this primitive bowl with this sort of contemporary metallic. It's sort of a neat opposition. It's a great contrast. But the rose is what really makes it work. And it really adds a beautiful texture. This would be a beautiful anniversary gift, I think. Just because it'd be beautiful on a romantic table for two. So you can kind of see the color palette we've got going here. And so don't be afraid to hit those with a little metallic paint. This one, copper, is warm, so it's a nice warm color, metallic for fall. You can say gold and silver for Christmas, but this is a beautiful, especially with this rose from Alexandra Farms, they just really work beautifully together. So, on the other idea I had, and this is sort of in the same color palette, you know, wrapping flowers, we all tend to wrap flowers in cellophane or paper. There is sort of a movement of considering sustainability with all the paper goods and things like that. So I thought, well, let's experiment today with wrapping things in foliage. In Hawaii, if you have a luau, they wrap the pig in tea leaves. So why can't we wrap flowers? So we just sort of made this tea leaf balloon around this little presentation of flowers. And let's see if I can untie this. So we're going to open this up and see what's inside. So our surprise as we unwrap this is a beautiful presentation of the Alexandra Farm roses with a little bit of fall grass. And again, these coppery oak leaves. And now the back side of the tea leaf is revealed, and it's really quite lavender or purple. So you can take the same string if you want and just tie those off. So just something to think about is perhaps we need to rethink our packaging or our wrapping. A wrapped rose in a tea leaf could be really gorgeous. And so there are going to be folks out there that is a concern to them. And so you can have another viable option for them. So this is the bouquet. Again, it mirrors this one without the pears. And the only difference is a little bit of movement with this seasonal grass. It's like a Johnson grass, one of the wild grasses. So just something to think about. Thank you. I'm just going to keep this over here for a little bit. All right, so as a designer, you know, we do these presentations and we have sponsors, and I'm thinking fall, and no red, no pink, and no white. Well, I got some white flowers. But I thought I'm going to do my best to make these white flowers look seasonal for fall, because flower design shows should mimic the real world, because sometimes you might have a funeral where you need a fall inspired look, and maybe the truck, or maybe by mistake, you got white flowers. So I thought I'm going to use these beautiful white flowers because there was nothing wrong with them. I just didn't think white would be something I want to present for fall. So the test for me was, how do I do this? So I'll start with this one. This is just a little white compote. And you know, there's nothing wrong with encouraging your customers to bring in their personal containers. I actually love it because I get to learn a little bit about their personality by what type container they bring into me. Of course, you should counsel them on what's suitable. You don't want them to bring in a giant garbage can for an inexpensive bouquet, but a lot of people have these terrines. This is actually a flea market find. It's a terrine with the lid missing, so it was very economical. This really doesn't have a lot of flowers as far as floral flowers. White little pumpkins, just a little bit of PG hydrangea and sedum. These little dry flowers were in one of my mixed boxes from our sponsors. And grocery store artichokes, I only use 2 because they're a little pricey right now. I'm waiting for them to go on sale so I can use 5. But 2 big artichokes. And you know, Actually, I had 3, but I'm gonna steam one for dinner tonight because I thought I'm gonna use 2 and save 1 because I'm gonna sponsor me on that one. So, and rosemary, because we sort of have this culinary theme with the artichokes and pumpkins. Rosemary is a great foliage, and it's a great way to tie colors together, especially white, because it has this gray undertone. And gray tends to neutralize when you add it to opposing colors. Lily grass, which typically you don't think of variegated lily grass for fall, but in this sense, it really adds a nice touch, especially with that white terrain. And the other thing that makes this work is oak. This is green oak. So since this is sort of a burnished green palette, a little bit of green oak works beautifully, and you still get the sense of fall because we think of oak trees as very fall. So just a touch of green oak ties this all together. The one product that I had to have, this is a little Abelia foliage, and it's just a great little way to tie things together, especially when you're starting with white and green, and you want to sort of mellow them out with a little transitional color. This is blooming now. You might be able to request for your wholesale. That's just an indulgence for myself that I cut out of the yard. It's one of my favorites. And if it could be grown commercially, which I believe it certainly could, if any growers out there listening, grow some Abelia. It's a great cut foliage. It's a great cut flower when it's blooming, and it's a great when it sets in seed pods. It's and maybe someone already has it that I'm just not aware of, but I'm definitely a fan. Again, there's your fresh sponsors also have preserved and dried materials this time of year that they're mixing in. So it's okay to mix dried and fresh together. It just, especially at fall, it really works well. So really, instead of using big chrysanthemums or something, we use those little Jack Be Little looking white pumpkins. So I'm gonna leave this over here for just a second. And you kind of see, actually, these, if you wanted to experiment a little bit, because of the Abelia, you could start to tuck in a little, because of the color, this metallic actually is kind of pretty in here as well. So don't be afraid to sort of transition your colors. And this is actually kind of interesting. Let me steal a few. And even though this is a green base, it still has fall feeling to it because of the materials and all the textures. Texture is the most important thing with fall. All right. So, Amanda, how are we doing on time?
Oh, we are getting close, but if you have some other things you'd like to present, go right ahead.
I've got one more, I think. And if there's time, I have one more that I could bring up, but we'll play it by ear. All right, so I'll just show you my palette again. And so this is really relating to this. It's how to take your green base and transition it into a fall tonal arrangement. And while you're out this weekend relaxing, take a look at what's going on with the crepe myrtles, the live oak trees that may be in your neighborhood in Texas, and just pick them up and carry them home like little color swatches, and then take them to work on Monday and see if nature can inspire a color palette for you. Let me bring this in. Let's see, I think. That might work actually. So this is really taking that white. Let me see if I can give you a closer look before I set it back down. It's really starting with white chrysanthemums, white spider mums, and to me, those don't really scream fall. Sure, they're a chrysanthemum, but how do you make, the task is how do you make white look fall? So I first started with brown and the sycamore leaf. And these have beautiful texture. They hold it beautifully. And the white pumpkin. The white pumpkin was an obvious with the white mums. These are ligustrum berries here, and a little bit of movement with the lily grass. And the preserved fern. This was a surprise. I had a bleached fern and this brown bracken fern, which I thought I was surprised. And I really wanted to use them. In sympathy design like this, you never want something to be spiky. I feel like if you have a soft, weeping line, it's sorrowful kind of line. Like this has wheat, but it purposely made the wheat sort of cascade down and sort of bow its head. It's a little more sorrowful looking. And I think when you're looking at sympathy flowers, you want a soft, weepy sort of line. I don't want them to look sad. I just want them to look sorrowful and somber. So when you use cascading materials like the lily grass and the wheat, instead of the wheat having this prickly little line, which we know wheat is prickly, if it was all straight out, radiating out, to me that would be not comforting visually. But if you take the wheat and it's sort of weeping, fallen over in the field, it just is more appropriate visually. And these are very subtle little things that they consciously may not notice, but I think it just makes the work more beautiful and appropriate for sympathy. Again, I use the abelia, and I think I have a little, you hand me that little wad of abelia. The challenge with this one is how do you tie together brown and white into a transition when you go from brown sycamore leaf to white chrysanthemum. You just start working your way with interesting materials. And this is abelia with flower on it. And it's just something that I gathered up. And it's really the only thing I used other than sycamore leaves and a few magnolia leaves from my own landscape. Everything else was sponsored flowers. So sometimes you just need that little something that you forgot to order or just didn't think about. Typically, I pluck these white little flowers off to just have the kind of coral-looking brackets. But in this case, it really helped to tie the brown sycamore with those white mums. And still, if you look closely at this, there are aurelia leaves. There is ruscus. Thank you, Mario. I lost that. So there's those good, dependable, everyday greeneries that we all keep as staple items in our cooler, but we're able to transition that from dark green and glossy to a textured, papery, fall parchment kind of look. And then just to give it some interest, this is a honeysuckle vine that I pulled off the gutters and spun it around. And it just gives it a little more interest, and it just sort of helps blend everything together. So when you're doing sympathy work, try and make it look like it's expressing a feeling. You don't want it to look wilted, but you want it to look sorrowful. Now, some people may want vibrant and happy in a celebration of life. It's just knowing your customer and when to sort of, your flowers could express this sentiment that they want to. But that's just one feeling that I wanted to highlight today. And the fact is that you can take white and make it into a beautiful fall sentiment. Any questions?
No, but everyone is very excited in the way you've been displaying how to put this all together and how you can mix and match all of these arrangements and the product that you received to make these beautiful displays. One of the things that was pointed out was the way that you put the leaves on the paper, and it showed the fall colors kind of transitioning. Yes, the color palette it looks really good on the paper.
You know, really, I'd love to take credit for these color palettes, but these are all just nature, and you know, they're they're um, they're just beautifully blended in tonal color expressions of fall. And so, really, just pick up some leaves and lay them out. And I take actually a big deep dish pizza pan, and I float them and study them, you know, for a few days. They look beautiful all together. But really, color palettes are tricky. And I made the mistake one time of saying, well, teal ain't a natural occurring color. And then it's like, have you looked at a peacock feather lately? So all the colors are in nature. And sometimes you're like, what am I going to do with this color? If you turn to nature, nature will tell you the color palettes. You just have to be aware of your surroundings. And color palettes for fall are all for free right now outside. This is a good weekend to go out and study color palettes. You know, it's all around us. Even, you know, this going into purple grapes, eggplant, purple chrysanthemums. You know, purple sometimes a little tricky to use, but with the same techniques of blending your colors, there's really no color that is not appropriate for fall if you just blend it and using different textures and keep that idea in mind, where it's not just jumping color opposing each other. It's one beautiful blend of colors, and you can find it all right in nature right now.
Rebecca stated, we have Rebecca Sullivan with us today.
Hey,
you
Rebecca.
could also use cotton balls in your design because it is a very fall theme, and they're dried, so it will work really well.
It is. Cotton is beautiful, and you know, I grew up in California in the middle of the cotton field, so I relate to Texas cotton. And again, cotton is white. You can just remove the cotton, and you have a very interesting textural with the bowls. But the cotton, people love the cotton and the white. So something like this would be a great way to take that stark white, and you have a brown bowl with a white cotton filling in it. There's nothing more opposite of the brown and white. So you can take the same sort of color palettes and blend those two together and come up with a really soft textured design. Yeah, cotton's a good one. And I'm glad you mentioned that because this is the color palette that would really look good with it. And because it's white and it is typically fall. Magnolia pods, they're brown, but they also have red seeds in them sometimes. That'd be beautiful with red to burgundy to wine colored palette, and the texture is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, magnolia is an incredible material. Everything about it is beautiful, very southern, and it lasts a long time, which is even a bigger bonus. So there's really nothing bad about magnolia, and it rolls right into Christmas. When it's dried, it's beautiful. You can paint it when it's fresh or dried with metallic. The undersides are beautiful. Both sides are beautiful. I mean, I love magnolia.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's presentation. Again, thank you Mayish, Alexandria Farms, and Zoom Roses for supplying those boxes of product for Charlie. We would like to take the time to thank all of the other underwriters as well. They are also a part of these presentations, and they supply product throughout the year, especially during these times. Again, we'll see you all next time, and thanks for joining.